This video is about writing expressions and writing equations. Before we get started, we need to talk about some math words and phrases that you need to be familiar with in order to write expressions and equations. So, some of the most common ones when you're dealing with addition are things like add, sum, total, plus, more than, and increased by. These are some words and phrases that when you see, they should signal to you, okay, I'm going to add. Then when you're subtracting, some words that should signal subtraction are things like minus, subtract, difference, less than, and decreased by. All of these mean to subtract. Words and phrases that should tell you to multiply are things like multiplied by, times, per, each, and product. And then when we talk about division, if we said to divided by, separate, quotient, or split into. All of these should signal you to know that you're going to divide. Of course, there's other words and phrases that we might want to know when we're talking about writing expressions, but these are the most common ones that you should definitely be familiar with. So let's look at exactly how do we write algebraic expressions. Now, an expression means that there is no equal sign. In a minute we'll talk about an equation, in which case there is an equal sign, but for right now we want to talk about an expression, which just means we're going to say something plus something or something minus something, and we're not going to have an equal sign. So let's start with this. 7 more than a number. So right here our keywords are more than. So if we were able to look back at our chart, more than tells us to add. So our expression here would be 7 plus n. N stands for our number. We have 7, so we would say 7 more than n is 7 plus n. 7 more than a number. Okay, what if we had the difference of n and 7? Here, our keyword is difference, and difference was on our chart in the subtraction column. And now, it's really important that you make sure you know which comes first. This one says the difference of n and 7, so we have to do n minus 7. For this, we know that addition is commutative, so it doesn't matter if you write 7 plus n or n plus 7. But when you're doing subtraction, it's not commutative, so you need to make sure you write it in the correct order. So in this case, it's n minus 7. Okay, for the next one, the product of n and 7. Product tells us to multiply, so we want to say 7n. Again, like addition, multiplication is commutative, so you could go either way, but the proper way is to say 7n. You put the number first before your variable. Okay, and then this next one, the quotient. Quotient tells us to divide, and once again, division is not commutative, so if it says the quotient of n and 7, we would want to write n divided by 7, or you could say n divided by 7, but in any case, you need to make sure n is being divided by 7 and not the other way around, depending on how it's written. Okay, so look at this one. We have 2 times a number plus 5. So in this one, we have 2 steps. 2 times tells us to multiply, and then plus tells us to add. So the first thing you need to do is define a variable. So we're going to use x to represent the number. So 2 times a number is just 2x. There's your multiplication step, plus 5. Okay, does that satisfy what we needed? 2 times a number, so 2x, plus 5. Okay, so these are all examples of algebraic expressions. Okay, so what if we wanted to write an algebraic equation? Okay, so now we're going to have the word is, and this is going to suggest an equal sign. So now we've gone from expressions where there's no equal sign to an equation where there is an equal sign. So let's look at this first one. The cost is 20 times the number of shirts bought. So times, we know there's going to be a multiplication. So we're going to have a couple of variables. C represents the cost, and n equals the number of shirts. So what are we doing? 20 times the number of shirts bought equals our cost. So I'm just going to say 20 times the number of shirts bought equals C, equals our cost. So this equation represents this sentence. Okay, what about this next one? The perimeter of a square equals 4 times the length of a side. And we know that. So we could say P equals the perimeter, L equals length. So what do we need to do? We're going to multiply 4 times L to get our P. Okay, so I want you to become really familiar with all the different words and phrases that go into making equations and expressions, and we're going to do some more practice when you get to class tomorrow.